Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's special online event. I'm your host, Joseph Grove. I'll introduce our panelists in a moment, but first, a couple of notes on how this evening will work. We'll have ample time to answer your questions after our panelists speak, and you can enter those questions at any time through your Zoom interface. You may see it at the bottom of your screen as comment, questions, or Q&A. I and other panelists can see them, and those we answer during the course of the event will be visible to everyone. Some questions, however, I will hold and pose to the group during the question and answer period at the end. Also, tomorrow, we will send a link to the recording of this event to all who registered to attend. That means that if you must leave early, you can use the link tomorrow to view the program in its entirety. You are more than welcome, encouraged even, to share the link of this recording with your family, friends, others who would like to know about this critical issue for animals. Now I'll introduce our panelists. Samantha Miller leads our Yes on 127 Cats Aren't Trophies campaign and is Colorado State Director for Animal Wellness Action. Her previous roles include Government Affairs Specialist for Miller Public Policy, Executive Director for Washington Wildlife First, and Wildlife Coexistence Campaigner for Wild Earth Guardians. Wayne Pacelle is the founder and president of Animal Wellness Action and the Center for a Humane Economy. The nonprofit Times has named him 7 times as one of the nation's top 50 nonprofit executives, and he is author of 2 New York Times best-selling books about animals and animal welfare. Wayne has led efforts to pass 1,500 state laws for animals, more than 100 federal laws and amendments, 30 ballot initiatives of the kind we're talking about tonight, and 500 corporate agreements. Finally, Dr. Jim Keene is with us. He is the head of veterinary sciences for the Center for Humane Economy. He worked as a veterinary infectious disease and public health researcher at the USDA in Nebraska and at the University of Nebraska for more than 30 years. Over the past decade, he has intensified his work as a proponent of sustainable agriculture and as an advocate against livestock abuse. His current interests include working towards more animal-friendly agricultural food systems and improving the welfare of industrial factory-farmed livestock and of animals used in biomedical or agricultural research. So, welcome to our program. All that said, I'll turn it over to Samantha Miller to kick us off. Sam?
Hi, Joseph. Thanks for kicking us off. I'm really glad to share that Wayne Pacelle is in here and he can give a few opening remarks before I dive into my presentation. So welcome, Wayne, and I'd love for you to kick us off and then I'll jump into my slides.
Great, Samantha. Thank you very, very much. And good evening, everybody in Colorado, around the country. And let me just say a special word of concern for our dear friends in Florida who are dealing with Hurricane Milton. I hope that everyone gets through that safe and sound. And of course, speaking of safety, we are talking about Prop 127 tonight in Colorado. It's the only statewide ballot initiative for animal welfare in this 2024 election cycle that focuses on animal cruelty. There is also a measure dealing with veterinary medicine on the ballot. That's Prop 129, also in Colorado. And I want to tell you, before turning it over in a couple of minutes to Sam, just what this ballot measure does. This ballot measure halts the trophy hunting and commercial trapping of mountain lions, bobcats, and Canada lynx. The lions are the ones who are the victims of trophy hunting. The bobcats are trophy hunted as well as commercially trapped. And the lynx are currently protected because they're very rare in number. But this ballot initiative would create a new statute that would impose a codification of a ban against trophy hunting or commercial trapping of Canada lynx, should they be attacked in the future. This ballot measure qualified because Samantha Miller on her team and Julie Marshall and hundreds of others in Colorado worked on the streets and in parking lots and in every sort of public setting, farmers markets, you name it, to collect 188,000 signatures of Colorado voters to put this on the ballot. So it will be decided. The end of the election is November 5th. The beginning of the actual voting commences just in a few days. All 4.5 million Coloradans get their ballots very soon on October 11th, just 2 days from now. All of those ballots will be mailed to people in all 63 counties in Colorado. And I just want to say a couple of words on why this measure is being or has been initiated, why it's on the ballot. Of course, we at Animal Wellness Action and the Center for Humane Economy, we are two of the 100 or so organizations that have endorsed this measure. Many of the organizations are concerned about the welfare of animals. And the hunting practices that we're talking about here are cruel and unsportsmanlike based on any kind of fair assessment of the issues. The mountain lions and the bobcats are typically, if they're trophy hunted, they're chased with packs of dogs with radio transmitters on their collars. And that chase can go for a few minutes, it can go for a few hours, and the trophy hunter is unable to keep up with the dogs who are racing after an animal. Sometimes the lion or the bobcat will turn and fight the dogs. There's as many as 8 dogs who are conscripted into their part of this, and an open air animal fighting situation can result. This results in bloody wounds for all of the combatants, and if the quarry is overtaken, certainly they can be mobbed and killed by the dogs. But in many cases, the lion or the bobcat will seek refuge, typically in a tree. These are cats, so they know how to climb trees. The dogs can't do that nearly as well. They can, maybe try to jump up and snap at the animal in the tree, but they are going to be pretty much on the ground and looking up. They've got this GPS equipment that is affixed to their collars, and the trophy hunter, or really the guide, has the equipment and then signals to the hunter, where the animal is. He or she then walks to the base of the tree and shoots the animal out of the tree. That is the moral and sporting equivalent of shooting an animal in a cage at a zoo. Hounds are not permitted to hunt elk nor deer. That would be considered unsporting. It would be considered not fair chase. The culmination of this hunt, to shoot an animal trapped in a tree and cornered, is anathema to anybody who regards hunting ethics as an important value system to honor. And we'll note, of course, that our critics, the trophy hunting community and its allies, say that this is something not suited for the ballot. Well, we've seen multiple times in the state of Colorado that when the Colorado Wildlife Commission and Colorado Parks and Wildlife did not pay attention to the values of the electorate, the people have put issues on the ballot, and the people have handily approved ballot measures to stop inhumane, unsporting, and, as I said, in many cases, very cruel methods of hunting. In 1992, more than a generation ago, voters from the Front Range and the Western Slope all over Colorado approved a measure to stop that form of hounding for black bears. It's the same system. It's the same types of dogs. They are the same dogs. It is the same tracking equipment, although it's become more sophisticated now with GPS. They were using radio telemetry in the 80s and the early 1990s. And it, again, culminates in shooting an animal out of a tree. Now, black bears can also be hunted by foot. They were also hunted with bait. Voters outlawed that. We've looked at the data with lion hunting, and 99% plus of the lions hunted, trophy hunted, are killed with the aid of dogs. This is really a not just a regular feature, it is an always seen feature of trophy hunting of lions. The dogs may go after a bobcat, and the same sort of hunting system, the same unfair system of shooting an animal out of the tree occurs. So my argument and our argument is, if it's wrong to hound bears and shoot them off of a tree limb, it is equally wrong to engage in this behavior targeting lions or bobcats. Now, the bobcats have an additional threat. Even though Colorado voters outlawed the use of steel-jawed leg hold traps and other body gripping traps in 1996, again, a generation ago, nobody really imagined that the bobcat commercial trappers would be so diabolical to use baited cage traps and to capture these bobcats, keep them in this confined situation with the animals frantically trying to get out, biting the cage, breaking their teeth, using their claws to try to frantically escape and perhaps breaking their claws. And at the end of that process, the trapper uses a choke stick and strangles the animal with a noose or may bludgeon the animal, all to obtain the fur to sell on the international market because there's no domestic market for bobcat fur any longer in the United States. So these are unfair, inhumane methods done for an inappropriate purpose. The head, the hide, and the fur of the animals. And I'll note that most of the lion trophies are nose-to-tail trophies. We've heard this completely phony argument, completely and utterly phony argument. It really goes to the credibility of the critics of 127 to say this with a straight face. They have been trotting out the notion in the last 3 or 4 weeks that trophy hunting is illegal in Colorado. Now, we know this is patently false. This is as bald a lie as one can concoct. There is no statute in the state that forbids trophy hunting. The words trophy hunting and prohibiting it or limiting it, restricting it, do not find a place in the same statute. What they are doing is they're taking a good law, what's called a wanton waste law, which forbids people from just killing the animal, and killing the animal for one part, like the bear's gallbladder, and leaving the rest of the animal behind, which is something that a poacher would do. We've never made the argument that they're not taking the entire head and hide of the lion. That's what almost all trophies are. All one needs to do is consult the hunting guides who lead the fee-paying hunter in a commercial venture to the base of the tree with the GPS equipment. That's how the hunting guides do it. But you look at their sites, they talk about the trophy toms, getting a great trophy. And we'll of course note that there's a whole derivative industry. And that derivative industry is the taxidermy industry. The trophy hunting guides have the taxidermists on speed dial. They take the head and the body, the entire exterior of the animal, and they provide that to the taxidermist who then delivers them a trophy. The argument that trophy hunting is already illegal couldn't be more false. And for all of these spokespersons opposing Prop 127 to keep repeating this lie speaks to their credibility. Sam, I want to turn it to you. I do want to go over with you a little bit some of the other falsehoods that we've heard, because I want everyone to understand what's going on. But I know you've got some really important details to add. So again, I want to toss this over to my colleague Samantha Miller. She's the campaign manager for Cats Aren't Trophies, the Yes on 127 campaign.
Yeah, yes to protect cats from trophy hunting, like the picture you'll see on my background for the evening. Ryan, could you pull up my slideshow? I'm going to go through a few slides that actually cite the statute so we can see the evidence on where everything lies and what Wayne was talking about. So right now in Colorado, it is absolutely legal to trophy hunt an animal. In fact, it tells you how to pack out an animal. And there's actually a video of Colorado Parks and Wildlife officer who's dressing a lion for field harvest and talking you through how to do that to protect your trophy. So this is exactly what Colorado Parks and Wildlife talks about. It's what trophy hunters talk about. It is all about the trophy. And so this is the wanton waste statute that Wayne had cited earlier. Next slide, Ryan, please. So this is from CPW, and this shows that the meat is required to be prepared for human consumption, just like deer, elk, and all big game. And so that's really what CPW says, is that with all big game, you field dress your animal. So if you're in the field and you're a hunter, ethical hunters do this with deer and elk. Lion trophy hunters do this just because they're supposed to, and then they take their picture first, Wayne, like the one behind me, but then they will dress their game and pack it out because that's part of the regulations in the state. You can go next slide. And then I think this really gets at another one of our opposition's arguments, which is really funny, where they always say follow the science, but they never say what the science is. So I think it's really excellent that we have this sign-on letter from over 22 scientists that all support a yes vote on Prop 127. And among those scientists are the former Chief of Biological Services for the National Park Service, the Director for the United States Fish and Wildlife Services, or the former Director for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, Dan Ash, and then also Jane Goodall, among many others from around the country and within Colorado. Thank you for showing that. And then Ryan, we also have a really great spokesperson in the former Director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, Dan Ash. He actually came out in support of our initiative and filmed a great video, and we'd love to share that with you right now. Are you good with that, Wayne, before I hop in my other slides? Perfect. All right, let's cue up Dan.
I'm Dan Ash, a sportsman and former director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Wealthy, out-of-state trophy hunters take Colorado mountain lions and bobcats for their heads and hides, with packs of dogs and high-tech gadgetry shot out of a tree. Unsporting, cruel. Yes on 127 protects mountain lions from trophy hunting, while allowing game management, protecting people, pets, and livestock. It preserves the balance of nature. Vote yes on 127.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. And Dan, of course, is a great spokesperson. And if we could go to the next slide, we can dig into a little bit more of what Dan was saying too. So this is our revised statute. This is what the statute would look like should you vote yes, should this pass. And you'll see that trophy hunting would be prohibited. This is the first time it would be in statute. It was not in statute before, it would be in statute now. So we would make it illegal to trophy hunt or fur trap mountain lions, bobcats, or Canada lynx. I think we often get the question, why Canada lynx? Don't they have federal protections? It's already illegal to kill them. That's great. I'm glad they enjoy those protections right now, but we've seen with many species like gray wolves, as soon as those species lose those federal protections, they're moved onto game management lists. And we believe that in Colorado, Canada lynx should enjoy the same enduring protections as bobcats and mountain lions, which is why they're included in our measure. We can go next slide, Ryan. So this is what is happening in the field, and this is what Wayne talked about, and this is also what Dan Ash talked about, and you saw a bit of that in video. And right now in Colorado, it is legal, it's perfectly legal to hunt a mountain lion with packs of up to 8 dogs. Those dogs wear GPS collars. They track lions through the wilderness, the same public lands maybe you or I like to hike on, or even private property. They will trail lions through, corner that lion, tree the lion, and then the hunter will get a signal, and the hunter just walks up to the tree, and you can go next slide, please. And shoots the cat out of the tree from a close range, and then takes a picture with his trophy, then field dresses that animal like we talked about, that wanton waste law, and then prepares it for the taxidermist so he can have the trophy on a wall, maybe above his TV. Something kind of similar happens with bobcats if we want to go to the next slide. So bobcats are actually, it's legal to cage trap bobcats, but also with bait. A lot of people use poultry to trap bobcats to lure them into the bait. You can see they're probably part of a turkey wing to draw that bobcat into a cage trap. Bobcat traps only have to be checked once a day, so it can be longer than 24 hours before a trap is actually checked. And then that bobcat is inhumanely killed with a choke stick, where the cat is strangled slowly to preserve its pelt, or bludgeoned also, again, to preserve the pelt. Can we go to the next slide, please? And then what we see again is trophy hunting. Bobcats can also be hound hunted just like mountain lions can, or their furs can be skinned and then sold to countries abroad like China and Russia. Colorado has an annual fur auction where they sell furs from trappers across the state, and it's perfectly legal right now to trap an unlimited number of bobcats for any one trapper. So for about $35, a trapper can decimate a bobcat population in their own backyard, and we have no real data on how many bobcats there are in the state. So I think that this addresses some of the big points I think we're hearing from the opposition. Most of them are pretty laughable, but I'm glad I was able to share some of those receipts, Wayne, so we can show folks, what's really happening behind the scenes.
No, yeah.
So
No, Sam, those are great images that you showed. And of course, the notion that somehow trophy hunting is banned and people are repeating this canard is astonishing to me. I mean, you showed the statute. You showed the wanton waste statute. It said nothing about no trophy hunting. And I just wonder how they answer this argument about the whole taxidermy industry. Why do they hold the cat like the image off to your right shoulder? Why do they have the cats on the walls? Almost all of the trophies that I've seen are nose to tail trophies. No one is suggesting that we just see people just cutting the heads off and leaving the entire body behind. We're saying they're using this unfair, unsporting, inhumane method, forbidden for deer hunting, forbidden for elk hunting, forbidden by the voters for bear hunting, and they're killing them for trophies. I mean, the fact is, we have a federal law in the United States, the Dog and Cat Meat Trade Prohibition Act. We don't have a real tradition of killing cats. So maybe there are some people who choke down a little lion meat. That does not change the purpose of the hunt for them, which is a trophy hunt. This is a relatively small number of participants in hunting. There are hundreds of thousands of hunters in Colorado. Many of them are on our side. Only a tiny, tiny fraction of hunters pursue lions. They are using dogs. They're basically buying the service from the guide. The average hunter doesn't have a pack of dogs and doesn't have the GPS equipment. They're paying $8,000 on average to hire a guide for a guaranteed kill. That's a commercial enterprise. It is a commercial enterprise to kill the bobcat and sell the pelt in the international market. Those are two practices at odds with something that some of the opponents of Prop 127 have iterated, which is they're for the North American model of wildlife management. But the North American model of wildlife management forbids commercializing hunting. So here you have a commercial enterprise with the method of take, with the packs of hounds and the GPS, and then you have a commercial enterprise in selling the product of the hunt when it comes to bobcats. I just also want to say, Sam, before we introduce Jim, that there's some other laughably false justifications that have been advanced. The one main justification for the packs of dogs, which are forbidden for all the other big game in the state, the justification is, well, the trophy hunter can then look at the animal in the tree and then determine the sex of the animal and let the females go. That would be a compelling argument if they weren't shooting in their annual take of 500 to 600 lions, half females. Last year, of the 502 lions shot out of trees in Colorado, 47%, about half. It's a coin toss. It's a 1-to-1 sex ratio. That's just about it. How can they make the argument? Just like how can they make the argument that trophy hunting is banned when it is clearly not banned in the state? How can they make the argument that the hound hunting allows for sex selective take to protect the females when 47% of them shot are females? And
yeah,
please.
Oh, I just wanted to add one more thing to that too. I think that the last thing I've heard opposition say over and over again is that, mountain lion hunting is what saved mountain lions. Mountain lion hunting protects mountain lions. This is how we save mountain lions, is by killing them with packs of dogs. And that's absolutely untrue. Prior to regulated hunting, we actually had a bounty program in Colorado to kill mountain lions. So people were getting paid to kill them left and right. Regulated hunting did bring mountain lions back from extinction because it limited hunting. It limited the hunting of mountain lions. And what we're saying is that there's plenty of science that shows none of this hunting is necessary. It's incredibly cruel and inhumane to hunt with packs of dogs. There's no purpose for a fur industry with Colorado bobcats, and that the predator hunting policies of the 1930s belong in the 1930s. And now is the time that voters can really make that change. So I just want to be clear too on that, and that this isn't an anti-hunting measure. I myself have hunted before. I've taken my hunter's ed. I even took the lion hunting identification course and passed without studying, if you could believe that. So this is not what this is. This is about cruel and unethical practices. This is about a relic of the past that belongs there.
Well, and I think there are certain folks, we don't hear it too much from some of their spokespeople because they know that this is a completely discredited idea, which is that if you don't hunt lions, the population will grow in an unlimited sort of way. Any person with a BS degree knows that that is demonstrably false. Any sort of wildlife training knows that that's false. They still say it, but now they're saying these other false things. So I think it's important that we address that. And I want to bring Jim in, Dr. Jim Keene, who did an extensive literature review on this issue. But Jim, before going to you about that aspect of it, even before we talk about the role that lions play in predator cleansing of disease, California has outlawed mountain lion trophy hunting for 52 years. The executive administration of Ronald Reagan, when he was governor of California, forbid trophy hunting of mountain lions. There was an attempt in the late 1980s to bring that back long after Reagan had left the governorship. And the voters of the state banned trophy hunting. They codified it. So it was an executive agency action first, and then it was codified in 1990. So there's been a ban for 52 straight years. What professional scientists will tell you is that the lion population has been completely stable over this period of time. And what they will also tell you is that the population of human beings is 6 times that of Colorado in California. And California has a little bit more lion habitat than Colorado, but generally comparable, slight advantage to California in the available habitat, but 6 times as many people. And over the last 3 years, an average of fewer than 10 lions were killed by state authorities for conflicts with livestock, people, or pets. 10. Compare that to Colorado, which is killing 500 and then another 60 or 70 for damage control purposes under the existing framework, partly because we know that trophy hunting removes many of the highly territorial animals and creates chaos for the survivors, who then range more widely, have a higher proportion of juveniles in the population because the older animals are killed for trophies. And those younger animals may be less skilled at killing traditional prey, and there may be an enhanced circumstance of coming into conflict with livestock or others. So California, number one, has an incredibly stable population, which disproves this other phony argument about unlimited growth of lion populations. And 2, the conflicts are among the lowest in the West, even though California has more livestock, more cattle and sheep than any other state in the country, except for Texas in the West, or in the range where lions are. So, Dr. Keene, I just want to maybe turn this to you. Now, you're a veterinarian, you're a PhD infectious disease specialist, so I definitely want to have you talk a little bit about CWD. But is there anything else you'd like to mention about the issue of lions self-limiting by defending vast territories, and then obviously the the prey availability of the lions?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well documented for any apex predator, including mountain lions, that their numbers are regulated by how much habitat there is and how much prey there is. And it's different from a prey species, such as deer and elk. They will just, as was shown on the Kaibak Plateau in the 1930s, if you get rid of predators, deer and elk will just take off with unlimited numbers. So their behavior of predator and prey are very different. And as you said, Wayne, as California proves, mountain lions self-regulate their numbers to match the habitat and the amount of prey.
And Jim, so let's just pursue that a little bit further, which is that you can have, considerable abundance with the right conditions for a short-term period for deer and elk, but lions, through their active predation, keep an upper limit on those deer and elk numbers, which means lower densities, which means perhaps fewer deer auto collisions, fewer elk auto collisions. There are 200 people who die every year from auto collisions with deer alone in the United States. There are there are hundreds of thousands of accidents. I know in a state like Pennsylvania, which does not have mountain lions, there are 70,000 deer auto collisions every year. 70,000, incredible number. So the lions are limiting the threat to motorists. They're also reducing impacts to forestry and to crops, because deer and elk can themselves depredate on crops. So again, the lions don't eliminate that problem, but they tamp it down. But I think the other remarkable effect is a study that you did. I think you were acknowledging that you didn't do the primary research, but you were doing derivative research, including from some folks at Colorado Parks and Wildlife, to show of the remarkable predator cleansing effect when it comes to lions and chronic wasting disease in deer and elk. So will you please explain to our audience tonight what the deeper dive is on that issue?
Yeah, sure, Wayne. In fact, I have some slides prepared that will cover a little bit of the ecosystem services, let's say, that they provide, and then also some CWD. So should we go into that now? So for those of you who like to read, we do have two reports on the Cats on Trophies website. One deals with the role of discusses, as Wayne and Sam both alluded to, conflicts with mountain lions. And basically, the more you hunt mountain lions, the more conflict you get with mountain lions and people. And the second issue is how big cats, especially mountain lions, but also bobcats, play a role in controlling this horrible new disease that showed up in Fort Collins called chronic wasting disease. Showed up in the late 1960s, and now it's spread pretty much across the whole continent. And it's uncontrolled, no immunity disaster. So I'll cover those two issues. So if you want to read, everything I say will be in much greater detail in these two reports if you're interested. Okay, next slide, please, Ryan. So again, from that first report as mentioned, there's the conclusion you can get from that is mountain lion trophy hunting increases conflicts with people, pets, and livestock. It's been shown in every Western state where it's been studied. And as Wayne said, the best example is California, where they have done it for 50 years. And of the 15 states that have reproducing mountain lion populations, California is number 3 in terms of the rate of the third lowest of the rate of conflicts with people, pets, and livestock. So also one of the justifications for hunting is that they're a competitor for deer and elk, and it's been shown that mountain lion does not regulate deer and elk populations. Deer and elk are regulated by habitat primarily and availability of food, not mountain lions or predators.
Jim, I just want to clarify that. I think because I just indicated that they can check excessive population, but I think what you're saying is that that lions do have an effect in that way, but they don't decimate the populations. Is that?
Yes, that's right. It's one of the there's basically 3 justifications to hunt lions. One is for sport or recreation or trophies. One is to control, I call it as a bias against predators. They're looked at as competitors. Deer and elk hunters look at apex predators as competitors for the prey. And the third is to control the conflicts with lions. So So it is true with the 14 states allow hunting of 14 Western states allow hunting of mountain lions, but they do not influence greatly prey numbers, and they do not, hunting lions does not decrease conflicts with people. In fact, it increases them. So the justifications made to hunt lions, 2 of the 3 don't carry any water. And then I think, Wayne, you covered that Ronald Reagan instituted the first ban in 1972, I believe, of mountain lion hunting. So it's great that we have that as a control state to know. If without that, it'd be hard to have to know what was going on. Next slide, please, Ryan. So one thing that when you hunt lions, this is sort of what the ecological effects of it. Humans are considered super predators because they're hunting excess predators. So obviously, when you hunt lions, you can increase the mountain population size. You're going to change the age and sex structure. You're going to have fewer males, more females generally, because the males are targeted primarily if they're available for trophies. And you have a younger population because you're killing off our older animals. So you're going to have a less genetically robust population because you're killing the superior animals that have gotten a terrier and reproduce. You're killing off reproducing animals, basically. There's also a phenomenon called epigenetics, which is when you put an animal under stress environment, it affects their DNA in the short term and even in the long term, and it takes away their ecological role. The things that Wayne and Sam and I have mentioned earlier. Okay, next slide, please, Ryan. So, how do they increase human conflicts when you kill mountain lions? First of all, you're killing off the target for almost every hunter is to get a large tom. The toms are reproducing. They fight to the death to keep that territory. So when you kill off a dominant male through a trophy hunting, subadult younger males are going to move in and they're going to fight over that territory, over the females and the prey on that land. And also the behavior of the prey species, the deer elk, is going to change because the animal population, the predator population has changed. And maybe one of the worst effects that happens when you kill off mountain lions is the layer below the top of the line predators, mountain lions and wolves, for example, are things like coyotes. And mountain lions also keep those they're called mesopredators in check. When you kill off mountain lions, the coyotes bloom, and coyotes cause way more damage than mountain lions or wolves ever do. So they're actually making it worse, and not only just because you increase the coyote population in particular. Okay, next slide, please, Ryan. So this is some data, actual data from what Wayne just mentioned a minute ago. So this is from 2022, which I think had the best data for. So in that year, if you look on, it's comparing Colorado and California. 486 lions killed by trophy hunters in Colorado, none in California, of course. 12 were killed by the federal wildlife services in Colorado, 3 in California. There were 20 lions killed by state officials in Colorado, 10 or by property owners, 10 in California. Look at the difference in the mountain lion reported incidents of conflict, either mountain lions bothering pets, people, or livestock, about a 4 or 5-fold difference. There were 2 humans injured in California. These were non-lethal, just humans were injured by a lion with the same animal population, but many more people in California. So this is some of the evidence that is, and it's been this way for several years now.
Yeah, Jim, I just want to just pause a minute to have people take in these numbers. I mean, you're talking about 500 lions shot by trophy hunters from trees in Colorado, 0 in California. Yet California still has fewer lions killed for conflicts. I mean, this is and the incident reports are just a fraction of those in California, even though you have 6 times as many people. So just by the gas molecule theory, you would think that if there are 3,500 or 4,000 lions with 39 million people, they would bounce into each other a little bit more because you have 5.9 million people in Colorado. So these statistics absolutely destroy the argument from the proponents of trophy hunting that they are serving some sort of management function in reducing conflicts. It's demonstrably false. And California, because it's the only state in the West that has this policy, and it also happens to have, comparably sized population, seems to me the best control to think about. So here we have a very compelling case. I just wanted to underline that for our viewers tonight.
Yeah, it's very striking. It's very striking. California also has policies. It's a 3 strikes you're out policy, basically. Before you can, they emphasize non-lethal deterrence. So a lion has to commit, unless it's directly attacking people, it has, before you get a permit to kill it for depredation, you have to try non-lethal methods. And those methods have been shown to be very effective. And I believe Parks and Wildlife in California, and you can tell me, Sam, I believe this is true, that they have some of these programs in the state already to do that. Is that correct? Sam?
Yes, they have that. And then we also have some programs we've been working on here in partnership with the Mountain Lion Foundation to work on non-lethal conflicts here in Colorado. So we're already setting that up through non-governmental organizations.
So I think this shows that people and lions can cohabit together. We can get along pretty much together without killing, lions that are causing no trouble for anybody. Okay, next slide, please, Ryan. So this is one of the reasons, it's a sort of 2 Venn diagrams. You've got circles that intersect. So one issue is the lions that cause conflict in people or pets or livestock, they tend to be young subadult males who are roaming, who don't know how to hunt very well yet. Maybe they are orphaned because their mother was killed. They didn't get trained properly to kill. It's a lot easier to kill a domestic animal, a sheep or a goat, than it is to kill a full-grown elk or a full-grown deer. The trophy-hunted mountain lions are not the same animals. So you're killing off the trophy-hunted lions. They're adult males. They're hunting deer and elk. They have a territory. They're not causing trouble. But we're basically, by killing off the trophy-hunted lions, we're creating conflict lions. And the second issue is the lions that are trophy hunted. How do I want? I got this. I want to compare this. The next slide is on the lower screen. It's the prey that the mountain lions prefer versus the prey that hunters prefer. Now, mountain lions, or any apex predator, they don't want to pick the healthiest animal to prey upon because they could get hurt. A big, strong animal is more likely to injure the mountain lions. If the lion gets injured, if it breaks a leg or something, it's probably going to die. So they deliberately, it's to their advantage to pick younger animals, weaker animals, older animals, or sick animals. Those are the animals that hunters do not favor. Hunters favor healthy deer, reproducing deer with big antlers or large in size. So it's just showing that the mountain lions and the hunters are not looking for the same prey. And the trophy hunted mountain lions are not the same as the human conflict lions. Okay, next slide, Ryan. I think we'll get into a little bit of CWD now. This is what I just mentioned before. There's this idea of predator cleansing. It doesn't mean to get rid of, to cleanse the world of predators. It means that the predators, all apex predators, mountain lions, bears, and wolves do this. They prey on weak and sick animals, not the animals that humans are looking for. They tend to be old and sick, very young or very old. And the outcome of this is you get a much healthier cervid population because you're getting rid of the weakest and non-reproducing population. Compared to hunters, they're targeting ornamented males and basically reproducing animals with lots of flesh. And so basically in this case, you're making the prey herds weaker because you're killing the best genetics, the most fittest animals. So they're attacking different prey species. Next slide, please, Ryan. So now we'll talk a little bit about CWD. Now, I've said this, other people have said it as well, that mountain lions are a deer and elk hunter's best friend in Colorado, and trophy hunters are a deer and elk hunter's worst enemy. Why? A lot of it has to do with this new disease, which showed up in Fort Collins in 1968. It was first discovered by Beth Williams, who was a Colorado State University veterinary pathologist. And basically, this disease it started out in Colorado, Wyoming, and it's spread nationwide. I think 475 counties now in 35 states. It just got into California in May. It got into Washington State, I think, in July. So it's reached both coasts, and it's gone north to south. It's got into Canada, and even from exported animals, it got into South Korea. So it's got there's no cure for it. There's no immunity for it. There's no vaccine for it, and nothing anybody has tried. The federal and state government spent $1 billion on it, and nothing has worked. Next slide, please. So here's a picture of a deer. It's called chronic wasting disease. So the deer or elk, when they become clinical, it's a slow-moving disease. They get super thin. They salivate a lot. They urinate a lot. They're extremely weak. They lose their fear of people. Obviously, this would be much easier to kill if you were a predator than a healthy deer elk would be. And of course, if you're a hunter, you're going to avoid these. And one of the reasons is it's a close cousin to mad cow disease, which popped up in Europe about 25 years ago, which turned out to be zoonotic. It's caused by a disease or an agent called a prion. It's a misfolded toxic protein. So it's possible, it's not been shown yet, that if you consume meat from infected animals, you might get the disease itself. And that's why the CDC and Colorado Parks and Wildlife and every public health agency recommends not eating the venison from deer elk that have CWD. So next slide, please. I think I'm almost done here. So here's just kind of a graphic showing on the left-hand slide. That's the current range of mountain lions. They actually, it's not shown this part, but they inhabit almost all of South America. So basically the western third of the US, you've got reproducing intact mountain lion populations, small little populations in Nebraska and the Black Hills. And here's where CWD is. 435 states, 435 counties. Now this is California. It just popped up here. But if you look at this map, and remember this has been going on, this has been going for 50 years. It started right up here in Colorado. It didn't spread west first, it spread east where there are no predators. There's no wolves, there's no mountain lions. So it basically spread in that direction to north, south, and west, and it's just starting to go, east. It's just starting to go west now. So that you can look at this map and say where you have intact mountain lions, you tend not to have CWD, or CWD is there, it's at very low prevalence. Next slide, please. That might have been my last slide. Let's see if I got any more. Oh, okay, well, I think there's two more. So here's the distribution where you can find mountain lions in the state of Colorado. Most of the counties, there are probably 2/3 of the counties in the state. Next slide, please. This is the last slide, a little bit busy slide, but this is the data from Parks and Wildlife Colorado. So this is the prevalence, how much CWD was found in deer and elk. On the left, this is found in deer. If you look in the northwest part of the state, the prevalence is more than 20% of the male deer that are harvested. So the dark red on the purple, that's going to be 10 to 20% or higher. So basically that whole northern third and western, eastern 2/3 of the state are CWD endemic, high prevalence. And there's a small area in south central Colorado where there is no CWD detected yet in the deer, and a much larger area in where elk inhabit. And it's probably true that the mountain lions are forming a barrier to keep CWD out of those counties. So they're providing a very valuable service.
Yeah,
again, this is okay. I'm done here. I think this is my last slide. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Jim, that deer and elk hunting are literally the cash cow for CPW in terms of hunting license fees. The lions are less than one half of 1%. The deer and elk are about 2/3, I believe. Samantha will
I think it's about
correct me.
160 million for the deer and elk, and it's 400,000 for mountain lions.
Right.
For license fees.
So what you're telling us is that this disease has spread, it's incurable, it's infectious. What you didn't mention, I think, but you often have mentioned when you and I talked about, is that the lions, if the elk or deer is taken, that the prion is almost unkillable, except if it passes through the gastrointestinal system of a mountain lion or some other predator, which is incredible because then it deactivates the infectious protein, which can be in the environment and then infect other animals. But let me just note that there are many people who've studied this issue who say that the progress of this disease arrested really only by the lions because there were no wolves in Colorado. So you look at the overlay of the habitat for lions and the progress of the disease, they were bulwark against that. The thesis is that lions are selectively and preferentially removing the infected animals, reducing the incidence within the population, keeping the population healthier. Some others say where we don't have these predators, the deer and elk population could be decimated in 50 years. So not 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, but in 50 years, and there may be no more deer and elk hunting because of CWD. So this is, I think, an astonishing, not just an ecological service, but it's an astonishing economic service to rural Colorado. I mean, if you add up all of the benefits of deer and elk in terms of the economy, the wildlife watching as well as the hunting, it may be $1 billion industry. And the only major deterrent appears to be the mountain lion population, with a small benefit from bobcats, and wolves are barely here. There are only 10 wolves in the state now, and they're recently reintroduced to the state. So Joseph, we've imparted information. I'm glad we covered it comprehensively, because what we had to do was debunk these set of false arguments that trophy hunting is already banned, that lions are going to destroy the deer population, that lions are going to be a nuisance to people. We've provided very tangible evidence, a reading of the statutes when it comes to the trophy hunting legality issue, and then the evidence that Jim and Sam have presented on those other questions. So to us, the vote is a logical yes on 127, and we want to equip everybody who's on the call. And hello to a couple of the trophy hunters who've joined in for us today. We're not hiding anything. We're happy to talk about this to you or others, and urge you to really think through your false arguments on trophy hunting. We'd like to ask people to participate. We have an e-postcard that we've Samantha sent out to our supporters, and you can reach Samantha at catsaren'ttrophies.org, and she can send you that postcard to send to friends and others. We have people we want who are door knocking and distributing literature. We want more and more people involved in that. So Joseph, I think it's very important that the takeaway here is not just educational. We want people to be active. We have just 3 weeks or so to the election, the conclusion of the election. The voting starts in just a few days. And if all we did was educate, fine. But really tonight, what we wanted to do is educate and activate. We need help to get the message out. You've heard these phony arguments. We have the antidote to every one of these arguments. We didn't even go into the mass orphaning that occurs, the same reason that motivated voters not just to ban hounding of bears, but also the orphaning of the bear cubs. The cats breed any time of year. So when you shoot, 47% of the animals are female. Many of them are going to be lactating females, or they're going to be females with dependent young. So Joseph, I'm happy to go over a little bit, if that's okay with you, to take some primary questions.
All right, very good. And we do have a few, Wayne, for you and the others to answer. The first one is about the edibility of mountain lion meat. How common is it? And is this not a justification for allowing some hunting of these mountain lions?
Well, let me start on that. And I've never consumed mountain lion meat. Very few hunters have consumed mountain lion meat. Clearly, they're very muscular animals. The point that I think we have made is that the primary motivation for the hunt is the trophy. This is a smaller bodied animal than elk, certainly, and for the most part, deer. We have a history in a meat, in an omnivorous but meat-eating society, of eating hooved animals, cows, pigs. Obviously, they're birds. Poultry are consumed. They're not hooved animals, but we consume certain animals that were domesticated for meat. The analog in terms of the wild animals are deer and elk. There are millions of people who participate in hunting in the United States. Deer and elk can fill the freezer for a lot of people. People would argue that this is not factory farming. This is the opposite, that the animals are running around free. And if the animal is killed quickly, then that can be a good choice for people filling their freezer. The lion hunting is small. It's very insignificant, and we simply don't have a history of eating dogs and cats. Now, the fact that a few people may do it, and whether they like it or they're trying to prove a point, does not negate the primary motivation for the hunt. If a black bear poacher wanted to kill a bear for the gallbladder and sell the gallbladder on the international market, if he ate a small portion of the bear, that wouldn't mean he's not a poacher. And someone who's hunting animals in a fenced enclosure and shoots an animal in an unsporting way, just because they may take a bite of the animal, doesn't mean they're not a canned hunter. These are trophy hunters, and the meat-eating purpose is largely irrelevant when you look at the entire trophy hunting literature. And when you look at the guides who are marketing and promoting the trophy as the purpose of the enterprise. And let me just say on the economics of it, it's kind of ludicrous. If you're spending $8,000 on a hunt and you're getting a few pounds of meat, that's the most expensive meat you could possibly buy.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, Wayne, that, one thing about our movement, which is unique, and it is a true Colorado grassroots movement, and that's that we have members of our coalition that are vegan. We have members of our coalition that are ethical hunters, and we really span across the values spectrum. 77% of Coloradans believe that trophy hunting of mountain lions is plainly wrong. And 88% of Coloradans believe that hound hunting is unethical. And that's from a very recent Colorado State University study. So we are all in the majority here. It's just a fringe group of folks that would like to keep killing these cats with cruel and inhumane methods.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you both for that. Another question we have is, subsequent to passage of Prop 127, enforcement will be executed by the Colorado Park and Wildlife Department. Are there any concerns or anticipated issues regarding this enforcement?
Well, there's already an existing law enforcement program. There are game wardens who enforce the laws of the state. So we would hope that people would abide by them. There will be poachers, and that's what law enforcement is for, to stop criminals from illegally taking wildlife.
All right. Another question we have, would someone be able to explain how landowners who have damage from a mountain lion would be able to be compensated for the loss of livestock or other damage the mountain lion causes? What does Prop 127 have to say about this issue?
So Prop 127 reclassifies mountain lions, bobcats, and Canada lynx under Colorado statute. And so landowners will be quickly compensated via the legislature with the stroke of a pen. And so it's just a quick change through the legislative session.
Yeah, let me just to amplify that. There are very few livestock killed by mountain lions. A very small amount of money has been paid out. With that reclassification, because of single subject rules with the ballot measure, we could not, continue that small compensation program. I'll just say for the record that we at Animal Wellness Action, the other coalition members, support the reinstatement of that program. There'd be no opposition to it. Presumably the ranchers would be for it. The hunting community would be for it. And the coalition behind Prop 127 would be for it. So there'd be no barrier to addressing this issue. And I believe from CPW, there were 3 cattle killed by lions in 2023. That's the data that I saw, 3 in the state. So when you think of the threats that cattle face, weather, disease, that is 99% of the deaths that occur. Deaths from mountain lions for cattle, almost non-existent.
And Wayne, just to add to that too, I think we saw with California's data, and just that conflicts can go down. So we could actually see a reduction in conflicts because we're no longer indiscriminately killing animals that aren't bothering anybody. So conflicts could actually decrease. And as a member of Backcountry Horsemen and as part of the stock program for Rocky Mountain National Park Search and Rescue, that's exciting to me. If you're a stock owner, you should want this to stop. And I hope that it does.
Lions are incredibly elusive. They are very shy. Some people, Joseph, have said, well, this is another issue of urban citizens imposing on rural. You saw Jim Keen's slide about lions. They live in Boulder County. They live in Jeffco on the Front Range. They live in Arapahoe. They live in Larimer. They live in El Paso County, which is Colorado Springs County. Lions live where the people are. Lions are living with urban, suburban, and rural people. And the conflicts are extraordinarily rare. The livestock deaths, especially for cattle, which is the bigger, is the big industry in terms of grazing. It's almost negligible. It's almost unmeasurable. It's so small. So we look forward to supporting the reinstating of that compensation program. There should be no barrier to it,
right.
and we'll be advocates for it.
Great. I'm going to read one more question that will close this out. I think it's a good one. Before I do that, and Wayne can say his final remarks at that point, I want to remind everyone that tomorrow, if you register for this event, you'll get a link to the complete recording. I'll also include a link to the postcard, to the commercial we showed you with Dan Ash. I'll include links to Jim Keen's incredibly well done, very informative scientific reports. Jim, because we've not had a question for you, I threw in an extra adjective to describe your reports. So just as kind of a bone to you for not asking you anything directly. But my final question is this. Sonia writes, this has been a very helpful presentation. Thank you. I've heard a lot, including a recent email from National Wildlife Federation Action Fund that argues that it is inappropriate for biological decisions to be made at the ballot box and should be made by state wildlife biologists. California is a clear example of a precedent for wildlife legislative decision making being made at the ballot box. But I wonder if the group has anything more to add in response to that argument.
Yes,
ballot box biology. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I certainly do. We entrust voters to decide all sorts of issues, right? And we entrust elected officials to decide issues. They deal with tax policy. They deal with health policy. They deal with wildlife policy. I think what some of these folks are saying is that the public is too stupid to decide that shooting a lion out of a tree is wrong. We're the ones who've presented the scientific evidence in this debate. I'm not familiar with reports that have come from the no side on 127. Dr. Keen, who's a veterinarian and a PhD scientist, has done 2 detailed reports. We've had 22 scientists, many of them with field experience with mountain lions in the West, dispute the notion that you must hunt lions to control their numbers. We're still searching for the actual arguments against the measure. They're making a process argument. In this case, citizens submitted 200,000 signatures, not through the normal ballot initiative process, but electronic signatures, to the commission to address this issue some years ago. The state legislature then had an opportunity to decide the issue, and it chose not to act on it. The Colorado Constitution provides a mechanism for citizens to decide these issues. It's used, and I think the founders or the originators of this provision essentially said this should be a safety valve, that when executive appointed commissioners who are non-scientists who oversee the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Department, and when legislators fail to heed the public's will, that this power is reserved to the people. But we're told that somehow there's something so mysterious about this issue and so difficult to comprehend that average citizens shouldn't be able to weigh in. Well, I can tell you that the voters on humane treatment of wildlife issues, the wolf issue was not a humane treatment of animals issue. That was a restoration issue. This is a humane treatment of animals issue. And when voters decided hounding, baiting, and spring bear hunting and gave it a 70% statewide majority, winning in more than 50 of 63 counties, that was ballot box biology. That was the citizens of the state saying, you guys are captured by this trophy hunting group, and we shouldn't permit these unfair, inhumane, unsporting methods. And then the same thing happened 4 years later with inhumane traps. Countries across the world have outlawed steel jaw leg hold traps. The fur industry has been in decline. Why are we setting these landmines for wildlife to kill animals for commerce, which is against the principles of the North American wildlife management model? So the voters have already decided this, and I think that they're smart enough not only to recognize the history of this issue, that when you exhaust your administrative and legislative options, that's when you go to the ballot box. It's only the third time that a humane treatment of wildlife issue has gone. It's 2-0 so far, and we'll see in 3 weeks or so how this one is resolved. This is not a regular occurrence. It's reserved for extraordinary circumstances. And I think all that people need to do is see that these animals are shot out of trees, and the average person can make a judgment that that's unfair and it's inhumane to chase them with the dogs and attack them with the dogs. So Sam, did you want to add anything to that?
Absolutely. I think that the question that we pose to the voter is a values-based one. And we've provided plenty of science to justify making that values-based decision. And when you see how these animals are killed, it's plainly wrong. And we know that science supports a yes vote on 127, and that this practice is completely unnecessary and has no place in Colorado.
And
so I would add, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, you know, the opponents like throw out science, even though they've brandished none. I mean, it's a word that's used, but there's not a lot of evidence to support it, to buttress the case. Science is not a monolithic thing. There are many types of science. Jim has 2 scientific degrees, one in veterinary medicine and the other in infectious diseases. Those are different sorts of sciences, right? So there's animal welfare science. Well, animal welfare science tells us that when lions are attacked by dogs, they have certain stress hormones that rise. They exhibit behaviors of fear. They have all sorts of metrics on animal welfare. If what they're talking about is, you know, the science is that this is not going to endanger the population, I'm not sure that's science. It's kind of counting animals. I'm not sure there's any science going on there. It's just censusing, counting animals. We're not making an argument on scarcity or endangerment. You haven't seen one word in any publications from any of the proponents of this ballot measure. We're making an argument that the animal welfare science is clear. The animals are suffering. We're making a values argument, as Samantha said, that this is at odds with hunting ethics because you can't do this with bears, elk, or deer. And we're making an argument that lions, as an apex predator, play an extraordinary cleansing role and act as a check in stemming the spread and the incidence of chronic wasting disease, which is the biggest threat to deer and elk in Colorado and in a number of other states. So when we talk about science, let's be a little bit more precise. We just don't see actual arguments. All we hear is, well, the wildlife professionals should decide it. Well, the top wildlife professional in the United States for 6 years was Dan Ash, leading a multi-billion-dollar federal wildlife management agency, and he's appearing in the ads for the yes side. So there's no, the scientists happen to be on our side for the most part. I believe the gentleman who's been the main spokesperson for the he's a retired CPW staffer, has a Bachelor of Science degree. I mean, great. I mean, it's wonderful that he got a BS, has an undergraduate degree. The 22 scientists were just about all PhD scientists. So there's some very rigorous experience with writing peer-reviewed studies on these sorts of issues.
All right, very good. Wayne, Sam, Dr. Keene, all of the people who have attended tonight, thank you so much. We really appreciate your involvement, your interest. The election is coming up. Yes, on Prop 127, cats are not trophies. That's the message. Catsaren'ttrophies.org is the website. You can find out everything you want to know there, and we hope you'll take advantage of that website and our many resources there. On behalf of everyone involved, thank you again for your support and your interest. We look forward to getting this passed on November 5th. And in the interim, feel free to reach out to any of us for more information or any way we can help you press the case with your friends, family, and others. It's a must-win for animals, and we need you on our side to do it. The time for action, and let's take it together. Thank you, everyone, and good night.